Cryptid Wilderness Research. My name is Daniel Becker, coming to you from Anchorage, Alaska. Joining me, as always, from Quincy, Washington, Matt Slater.
Hello.
And also joining us from Anchorage, Alaska as well, as I always say, a man who needs no introduction anywhere in the municipality of Anchorage, a man who doesn't make an appointment with the mayor makes an appointment with him, Paul Ayat.
Hello.
Joining us tonight, as I said the last time he was on, the flagship of the Bigfoot podcast and Cryptid podcast, the host of World Bigfoot Central, World Bigfoot TV, World Bigfoot Radio. He's all over the place. A legend amongst Bigfoot researchers and broadcasters. Duke Sullivan from Montana, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Howdy.
Duke, you are just coming off the heels of the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. So let's start there. This was, I believe, your third time at this conference, which to be asked back 3 times to a conference, that's a big deal. That shows just how respected you are and how much influence that you have. So tell us about your history with this particular conference.
Oh, well, this one I got involved in it predominantly because Robin is involved in it, and she knew Harriet and wanted to help her out. And they were just coming off the pandemic, and, you know, that kind of destroyed a lot of the annual things. And so she was trying to rebuild the conference, and Robin asked if I knew anybody that would be good to get there. And yeah, and, you know, and I went over there, and then the that one did pretty well. And there was enough people that liked me to make me, they wanted me to come back again. They have questionnaires that they have like sort of on the back of your program guide. Which speaker did you like the most? Which ones didn't you like? What did you like about them and stuff like that? So they get all this information from the people that attended, and they go through it and decide if they want to have any of the speakers back or who they want to get the following year, what people are interested in. So while I was there, the person that puts the whole shindig on, Harriet, was talking about doing a Legend of Boggy Creek theme for the following year. And I said, you know, hey, you should get, you know, Keith Crabtree to speak. And she said, well, he doesn't speak, does he? And I went, well, has anybody asked him? He just recorded an episode of my show while he was here this weekend. And she's like, oh, okay, well, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, you know, he wore the suit and everything. And then she was going to have the lady who's the daughter of the guy that actually made the movie show up and talk about it. There was a couple people there that had actually been in the movie besides Keith. And then I managed to get William Lunsford and Stephen Hill, both of whom do research in the Falk area currently, to also show up and speak there. And we were sort of worried that one of our speakers wasn't going to show up, and we were right to worry because they didn't. So I suggested that they get Blaine Tyler there as a backup just in case. And that turned out to be a really good idea. But Blaine wasn't for sure that he was actually going to get to speak. So he wasn't really all that prepared by the time he got the, oh my God, we need you to speak tomorrow. Well, that's not a lot of time to put anything together. And he's not at home with a computer or anything. So what he managed to actually put together was pretty great. He did a half an hour and split the time with another guy that was there. And actually, I recorded, he was again there this year, and I recorded his full presentation this year. Plus, we're going to add on a little piece from last year where he was doing this really hilarious part of his presentation where he was talking about his Bigfoot girlfriend. And then he had a recording of him standing out in the field and going, whoop, and then she'd go, ah! Back at him, and he'd go, whoop, and she'd go, ah! Back at him. I said, hey, that's my Bigfoot girlfriend out there in the woods. So then since you know, that last year with the Boggy Creek thing worked out really well, and that was when we planned inevitably finding Bigfoot, because we knew we were all going to be back there the following year. How many of you can show up early? I know Rich Soul, pretty much top Bigfoot researcher in Nebraska. We can go over to one of his locations and spend part of the day and see if we can find anything. How much fun would that be? Let's go find a Bigfoot in Nebraska. None of us live there. So that was the whole, you know, part of the idea behind inevitably finding Bigfoot. Let's see if we can do it. And we pretty much use Finding Bigfoot's formula. People that don't live there come in from out of state, do some research, try and find out where the Bigfoot are. They do it by having a town hall meeting. I do it by calling the best researcher in the state because I know all of them and say, hey, where's the Bigfoot at? And he says, oh, yeah, they're over here. Well, actually, there's several places, but the one that's closest to me that I can, like have the time to drive you guys and show you where to go to. That's over here by the capital of Lincoln, Nebraska. In fact, in the suburbs of it, which is where we went, which is even more hilarious. And yeah, we were successful, and we filmed 3 over there. And then when we got back to the Bigfoot Museum, which is where we were staying that year, then we had more Bigfoot activity that night. And Blaine got the red eye glow out the window in the museum. He was sleeping on the floor in the basement, heard this tap, and looked out the window and went, wow, what the hell? And then the following night, me and Christy were out late at night having a cigarette, and one of them actually showed up in the tree line. There's like this little thin line of trees, and then there's open cornfield behind it. And it was standing almost back at the end of the little tree line where the cornfield was, and she got a good picture of it. So that's in there too. But then this year, of course, the idea was to basically do a presentation like last year. I had done kind of a best of, here's a lot of the pictures and video I've got with Bigfoot on it. Here's, gigantic tree structures of mega gigantic size, superstructures, 50, 60 feet, gigantic things. And so I kind of included that in the video of Inevitably Finding Bigfoot, because part of the idea with that was, we're going to show we all go there. What did we do before we went there? Well, we ran around and found Bigfoot. And then when we got there, we all teamed up and became the Wild Man Bunch and found some more Bigfoot. And then, of course, we had to go home. And after we went home, guess what we did? Found more Bigfoot. So that's all in the movie. That's why it's called Inevitably Finding Bigfoot, because we're not looking around and not finding them. Where we go and look for them, we're finding them. It's inevitable. We're going to find Bigfoot.
And I think it's great that you guys actually did some boots on the ground research while you were in Nebraska, because Nebraska is not a state that you often hear that's put out there when Bigfoot is discussed or when cryptids are discussed. Were you surprised when you first learned how active cryptids were in the state of Nebraska?
I was surprised there was any Bigfoot anywhere near that area, because it's all flat cornfields with little tree lines in between properties, and that's it. And you can see how they could jump from tree line to tree line, but you got to be doing that at night and really sneaky. And then the other thing, of course, is that the whole state has massive karst systems underneath it. So they've got plenty of underground travel ways that they can use too. They don't need to be above the surface a lot of the time. And if you look at eastern Nebraska, I mean, that's all flat as a pancake and covered with cornfields. And that's the area we were in. We went even further east 2 hours to Lincoln, where it's like even flatter in cornfield here. And there's some grass fields there too, but not like 9-foot tall grass like they used to have when the buffalo were there. But that area is just like if you're thinking about Bigfoot, Pacific Northwest, big woods, this would be one of the last places you would think they could be. And the only reason that I would even think they could be there is because I know people that are over there that are finding evidence, and also because I know people like Caveman Yazzie down in northern New Mexico, which you want to talk about an area that's even flatter. It has less trees and no cover, and they're all over the place there too, so they can hide anywhere. So the thing that did impress me, though, was on the way back, I drove through western Nebraska, and as you start getting into western Nebraska and going up toward the mountains in Colorado and Wyoming, it's all thick hardwood forest. I actually saw some big tree structures from the road as I was driving back. And of course, it was a piece of road that said, no stopping, $700 fine. And I'm like, you suck. I want to stop and film these tree structures. So I had to keep driving, couldn't do that. But I had noticed them 2 years before when I got a ride back with Forrest, and he was driving. So I was like gazing out the window at the trees, watching for giant tree structures, which there were. So western Nebraska doesn't surprise me because it's perfect terrain for them. Nebraska has tons of river systems and streams and stuff. There's lots of water, and the western part of it's all wooded. So yeah, it looks like prime habitat. But you get out on the eastern side, and it's all like flat cornfields, and you're going, where the hell are they hiding around here? There's sign of them. You know, I found while I was there this year, I was staying in the new chapel building outside the Bigfoot Museum that you just got wired with power and everything. And we had terrible storms. It knocked out the power of the house. We had tornadoes that hit, what was it, Lincoln and Omaha while we were having the conference. We had a wall cloud above us that didn't come down, luckily. But that was on Friday night. And then the little chapel building I was staying in when I came out on, was it Saturday morning, I think? I noticed that there was a nice big fat 16, 17-inch track in the mud about 10 feet from the door. And something had whipped past the chapel building in the middle of the night and left a nice big fat footprint there. And I brought Harriet out and showed her and Forrest, and I filmed it and put a tape measure down. But yeah, you know, it's like there is activity there. The first year we were staying there, and we had me, Robin, Christy, and Robin's then husband, Pat, all staying there. There was activity around there the whole time we were there. Robin and Christy both saw him walking past the windows. Me and Christy were sitting out in the backyard. There was one in the backyard. She could see his eye shine. She was talking to him. And then the next year we were there were more. And then this year, I was the only person that was there other than Harriet, and I was in that outbuilding. And again, there was activity going on. As a matter of fact, Forrest was on the second floor sleeping, and he's hearing impaired. And he got woke up twice with something tapping on his window. So you can imagine how hard it'd have to be tapping. And it would also have to be at least 9 feet tall to reach the window to tap on it. Okay.
Wow.
Then the next morning, it was Sunday morning, and somebody came over to the door on the chapel and went tap, tap, tap. And I went, oh, somebody's trying to wake me up for some reason. So I got up and I walked over to the door, and there was no one there. And I looked out in the parking lot. All the vehicles were gone. Everybody had gone somewhere. It was like part of them went to church and some of them went shopping, whatever. They're all gone. So later on that afternoon, I'm up at the house telling Harriet about this. And it's me, Harriet, and Forrest are in the upstairs. And all of a sudden, we hear the exact same thing on her door, tap, 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 that I'd heard early in the morning. And she's right next to it. She opens the door. There's nothing there.
Wow.
Wow.
Let me pass the ball over to Matt in Quincy, Washington. Matt, in all the Bigfoot conversations that we've ever had, and Paul as well, I don't think we've ever talked about the possibility of cryptid activity in Nebraska.
Yeah, like, you know, I'm with Duke. Like, where are they going to hide?
Yeah.
And it's like
I found out from the Navajo,
obvious.
they're, you know, here's one of the things they do in those areas where there's no trees or anything, is if there's a ditch at least 3 or 4 feet deep, that's where they're going.
Yeah,
All they have to do is stay below the surface level so you can't see them. And man, can they go fast, spider crawling or on all fours.
Yeah.
They don't require standing up like we do. They can actually go faster on all fours. So that kind of, you know, that's one of their methods. And of course, then there's the paranormal ones that people like to say, you know, they're just phasing out or cloaking or turning invisible or portal jumping, you know, could be something to that. But it seems like Harriet's got some of them around there kind of keeping an eye on her all the time. She says about 4 o'clock in the morning when she gets up, she'll hear something outside whistling this little tune to her in the morning.
Now, Harriet is the founder of the Bigfoot Museum. Is that correct?
Yep.
And that's in Hastings, Nebraska?
Yep. Yeah, it's the Mid-America Bigfoot Museum, listed on the Library of Congress listings. Oh, places, official ones, Library of Congress listing. So it's not like some little bookstore or something. No, this is the actual real museum.
Yeah, like I was saying, I don't believe that Matt and Paul and I, in our discussions about cryptid activity throughout the nation, we've ever even considered Nebraska. So the fact that you guys were able to get boots on the ground and actually be able to do some research there is awesome.
Well, it would, you know, it's like if you got to go look and find a Bigfoot in Oregon or something, that's like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, come on, you know, You could have Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder trying to find tracks there, and they could probably do it. So it doesn't take a whole lot of skill, is what I'm saying. So the bigger challenge for us is if we're going to do a Finding Bigfoot type thing, here's a prime opportunity to try and find Bigfoot in a place that by all rights there shouldn't be any. And anybody that hadn't already done the research would think there's no way there's Bigfoot there. And I used to think that about some other states too, like Iowa. That's just to the south of Minnesota. Spent a bunch of time driving through Iowa. Well, how in the hell can a Bigfoot live in Iowa? I always used to say. And then I ran into the researchers that are right on the border of Des Moines and Wisconsin. And there's 2 tribes of them just across the border in Wisconsin from the capital. They've been over there for like 12 years researching them.
Wow.
And everybody's like, there's no Bigfoot around here. That whole riverway all the way up to pretty much the source, at least from that far south, I've checked out all the rest of it. There's Bigfoot all over it. The inhabited portions of it on the Minnesota side, not so many. But a lot of the Wisconsin side is still forest. And there's just a ton of them over there.
Matt, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just fascinating that they're out there all across mid-America, all across the Great Plains, flat, wide open spaces, but they find a way.
Well, keeping in mind, you don't generally see a ton of them there. Either people aren't seeing them, or if they are seeing them, they're not reporting them because it sounds so crazy. How could there possibly be Bigfoot out here in the Great Plains, right? They live in the Pac West, so. And then, the other thing is just probably the population isn't quite as dense as it would be in other places. Like Western Nebraska, I'd like to see some I know 0 researchers that do research in Western Nebraska. I would like to see somebody over there actually spend some time in that area, because just driving through it and I'm looking at it going, there's got to be tons of them in there. Ancient hardwood forest, rivers all over the place.
Paul Ayotte.
Yeah, I was thinking of that too. Nebraska, I was the theory that they move around at night. You know what I mean? Maybe some of them figured out safer. Who knows?
Well, it looks like for the most part they follow all the riverways like they do in most of the other states too. And Nebraska has pretty much more riverway than almost any state in existence, and almost all of it is riparian forest. So there's that woods around all of it. So that's not only how they're traveling, but that's where they're making their living. Yeah, they can come up higher and go pillage the farmers' fields or whatever it is they want to get up there. But then most of the time they're down in the river valleys probably.
Yeah. That's pretty neat, yeah.
So you mentioned underground movement. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, I've done a couple of shows with Rich Soul about that in particular, and that's one of the things he as Bigfoot researcher, top dog Bigfoot researcher in Nebraska, has talked about the subterranean Sasquatch. That's not very far back on my playlist. We actually rebooted it fairly recently. And we have reason to believe that part of the weird eye structure and some of the tricks that they've been observed to do has to do with them being totally acclimated or otherwise set up to live semi-subterranean life, where they don't need an external light source in order to be able to see where they're going. And they have more than one trick that they can use to do that. And this is one of the things that the res squatching researchers over there in Omaha and the Omaha tribe in Nebraska and Rich, who works with them, have been working on, because they'll go out and do nighttime patrols where they actually walk a trail during the day where they know where everything is, and then they'll walk it again at night with no lights on in the hopes that they'll be able to get eye glow and film it. They've caught it a couple of times. So then he had another scientist he was talking to who's an expert on deep sea fish and phosphorescence, and the deep sea fish can make themselves glow and stuff like that. And he was showing him the video they got and stuff. How is it possible? And the guy actually, here's a way that it could be happening. And of course, the benefit would be, and they've observed this, that in the one case, the subject was standing underneath a tree branch, was about 9 feet high, and his eye glow was lighting up the bottom of the branch. So it's throwing light, at least for a limited distance. They got that on video.
Wow.
So if they're in an underground or something where they need to see a short distance, like, hey, am I going to walk into a pit here or something? Turn on the eye glow, take a quick look around. Okay, you're good. The other thing that we come to the conclusion is because they have infrasound, which is observably pretty obviously the case, they have probably developed other things that they can do with it. And we know that they can vocalize at higher and lower frequencies than we can. And it's probable they can hear in higher and lower frequencies than we can. And another trick that they could potentially be doing is sonar mapping. Just like bats flying around in a cave, they're not looking where they're going. They make a squeak and they listen to where it bounces and echoes back to their ears. And they can make a mental map of what it is around them without actually seeing it. And Bigfoot Anthropologist on his channel has done a bunch of research, not on this in particular, but on the weird sounds in the background. He's got a lot of actually authentic Bigfoot video that researchers have sent him. And he likes to do an audio analysis on it and subtract all known sounds out of it until it gets to the point where there's just these strange anomalous things in there. And what he keeps coming up with all the time, in addition to some other things, is clicks. And I heard that enough times and I went, that sounds like a bat echolocating.
Yeah.
And if that is what it is, this would explain how Bigfoot can walk around in total darkness and not break a twig or make any noise at all. Because they make that little click, they map the area in front of them, they know where to step. When they get to the edge of that area, they make one more little click, map that area, they proceed along, they know exactly where to step, they won't make a damn sound. And we can't hear it.
That's interesting. That's surprising. I never thought about that, using echolocation.
Well, it makes sense that they would have that. If they're spending a lot of time underground, they would have to adapt to that. And it's not entirely improbable to think that that could be happening, too. We have an example of a deaf kid who learned how to ride a bike by echolocating.
Yeah.
He could make clicks and hear what was in front of him and avoid. And they had some epic video of him trail riding this thing. And you're like, oh, my God, I can see, and I wouldn't want to do that. Like that, you're going too fast and that looks really dangerous. But he was doing it somehow, So if he could learn that without their special set of abilities, just as a human, that certainly means that there's definitely the possibility they could be doing it.
Yeah.
With their superior hearing and, audio abilities to be able to make infrasound.
That's very true.
So, there's always talk about behavioral characteristics of Sasquatch in different parts of the country. And I have to ask this question because Nebraska is so new on the plate, for my co-hosts and I. What type of Sasquatch behavior has been observed up in Nebraska? Are they more aggressive or are they more reclusive? How would you classify their behavioral characteristics?
I've only heard like maybe 40 or 50 reports out of Nebraska, and maybe one or two of them was aggressive. They're really shy and retiring and stay the hell away from humans. And they got this weird thing where they're like braiding flags. I don't know if they're doing that in other parts of the country, but it seems like they're doing it in Nebraska. And the braids just look exactly like the way they braid a horse's mane. And it's even got the little signature knot at the bottom of it and everything that those always display. So that's really peculiar. Don't know exactly what they're up to. Robin claims to have mind spoke with them, and they told her that it was an emblem of both of our people getting along together. The flag is our emblem, and then them braiding it as their emblem. And they don't get that, we think when you tear the flag into strips to braid it, you kind of desecrated it, but they don't get it.
Paul Ayat.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's a form of communication if we think about it. A braided flag or some type of instrument we use, and they'll turn around and braid it up and use it, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating topic. This Nebraska thing is totally new for me.
It's bizarre, and there's enough of it that Harriet made an entire book on this, and she's got all the illustrations. She's got, this may have been going on for a long time because when flags are desecrated, they burn them. And she had to get special permission to keep these desecrated flags in her museum. So she's only been able to collect them very recently. but she started looking for old reports of them. And she found one that not only did it sound like exactly the same thing, they had a picture of the flag. It was braided the same way. This was in Washington, D.C., like over 100 years ago. And nobody could explain what happened or how it happened.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really freaky. Yeah, that's in her book. I'm looking at this going,
Man.
oh my God. Is anybody investigating this in other states? Probably not.
Something else.
So let's pull up that picture, Matt, of Duke. You're on the stage at the latest Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. There we go. Tell us about this picture. What's happening here?
Well, as you can see, there's the giant movie screen above us, and I just finished showing Inevitably Finding Bigfoot. And he turned the house lights on, and me and Christy and Blaine, all wearing our nifty matching Inevitably Finding Bigfoot shirts, available at my Teespring store. And there's this Bigfoot-looking thing standing over there in between me and Christy. That's just a statue. That's all it is. So yeah, we got about 10 minutes to answer questions, and before they wanted to close everything down, so we didn't get very much time to talk.
Tell us about some of the questions that you got. What were a couple of the interesting ones?
I mean, they were pretty basic. They were just asking things about not really anything pertaining to finding Bigfoot in Nebraska, which kind of surprised me. There's some random questions about other things. None of them were stunning enough that I remember them. Let's put it that way.
Oh, got it. And so this was a new venue, correct, than the previous years?
Yeah, they're in the main fairgrounds of the state now because they completely outgrew all the venues in Hastings where it's centered and used to be. So I had to move about 30 miles away to Grand Island. And yeah, I think they're looking at having an even bigger building for next year, which has pretty much got the same lineup as this year, which is a great lineup. So if you missed this year, you can definitely come back next year and see pretty much the same lineup. Except for me, I'm just like 3 years in a row. No, I'm not making that horrendous 2-day drive over there and back again for a fourth year.
Well, the fact that you've been there the last few years and each year they're showing growth, shows that you have helped build this conference. So that's a great accomplishment along with your partners that were there. So
I had quite a bit to do with this year because this, we have a 2-day conference, and the first day usually like the lesser known researchers, and we had a Bigfoot comedian that was there opening up, and we had a couple of the people that produce documentary movies that were showing them on Friday. But the main draw, so to speak, is on Saturday, and that was Robert Kreider, who I got to show up this year, Blaine Tyler, who I recommended to be there last year. Now here he is for the second year. Robin Haynes, of course. And see, who am I missing? Dave Scott, who got there a day late because of stupid airlines that can't schedule things properly and was supposed to speak Friday and had to speak Saturday. And then I did the presentation of my movie, and me and Christy and Blaine, who were 3 of the 5 cast members, came out and did 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards. But that was the end of the whole conference, and everybody was like in a hurry to get their raffle ticket numbers and stuff and take off. So they were, at that point, not asking a lot of questions. I think the movie was pretty self-explanatory anyway, so they didn't really need to.
So a lot of people may not understand just how much it takes to put in for a documentary like this. Why don't you go ahead and share that with us, because it's taken a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of hours of editing to finish this project. Why don't you tell us about that journey?
Well, if you're a YouTuber, a lot of YouTubers, all they know about doing YouTube is you click the go live button and you talk into a microphone. And that's like the lowest level. And then there's the podcasters that know how to edit things in, or they figured out, one of the platforms that allows you to do it live and stuff like that. And they can put together a pretty reasonable live show. And then the next step up from that is to have everything pre-recorded and put it all together in the studio so that you can edit the hell out of everything and cut out any little dead air or background noises or guessing things that they later decided they didn't want to say and things like that you can't take out live. Well, you can take that out after the fact. You can also fix the sound. There's all kinds of different things you can do with it. And that's what I've been doing for like an hour-long show every week for years. So that's like making a TV show by yourself every week. Going from that to making a documentary movie is ridiculously gigantic, because you not only have to do all the same things, but like in my case, you're trying to set everything to music, and the music has to time out to the pictures and the video, which is one of the most difficult things to learn. It's like trying to do a vocal sync when you're running something, and then you have to jump away from the main video and then come back to it and try and get it to sync up again in order to get the vocal track to sync up with the actual mouth movement, and not make it look like a Japanese Godzilla movie. You got to be within 1/100th of a second.
Yeah.
So it's pretty tough to do. And then you've got lots of other editing horrors, like doing multiple audio overlays or wanting to change different things in the audio. And in order to put together a talk show with a guest showing pieces of video and adding all that kind of stuff in probably takes me about anywhere between 8 and 12 hours for my weekly show of actual work and editing time, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more. And in order to do this documentary, spaghetti western musical style, it was taking me like 8 hours per 5 minutes.
That's rough.
And that's why it took a whole damn year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I could do an hour-long TV show every week, but yeah, it still took a year to do that thing.
Well,
I can't wait to see it. Anyway, a lot of pictures on there. That takes a lot of time and effort, man. Hopefully you release it one of these days for the masses.
Well, it's coming. In between doing my weekly show, I have time to tinker with it. And I'm trying to get it down to a reasonable length. The one we showed in Nebraska was like 142. And I think I got that shaved down to about like 128 or something now. But I just went ahead and threw in part 3, because in Nebraska we only showed part 1 and part 2. We didn't even show part 3. And so now I'm trying to cut it down so that I can get all 3 parts on in under 2 hours, which still is like pretty damn long. I mean, yeah, we stole The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly soundtrack, and that movie was 3 hours long. So we were trying to not be that long. 2 hours, plenty. But we do have the one virtue of showing like way more Bigfoot than any documentary ever made has shown. And let's face it, we're parodying Finding Bigfoot. And if we even show one Bigfoot, we got them beat.
Yeah.
There you go.
So what people may not know about you, those who watch your show every week, well, actually, the ones who watch your show regularly should know. But for those who don't know, you're not only the show host, but you have your own active research area in Montana.
Yeah, several of them, plus a team.
You're like the coach that goes in and plays quarterback every now and then. Yeah. So tell us about your Montana area and your team and what you got going on there.
Well, we've got pretty much all of Western Montana covered between my team. Plus, I got another team member that's over in Spokane, Washington. They're kind of scattered all over the place. Sometimes we need a bigger team. We call them in. Actually, Shane from Spokane, he was in the documentary. There's one really cool part in there. Here's a little Easter egg for you guys when you finally see it. Remember this and watch for this part. We're showing a big X structure. And I start at the X, and I go down, and Shane's standing at the base of it. And then I cut to, I'm standing on the other side of the X, And I'm once again looking at the top, only this time I'm like underneath it. And I bring the camera down and I go, there's another big X right over here you can see from this one. I turn and I zoom way in on this ridge line where this other X structure is, right in on it. Well, as I'm turning the camera, there's two Bigfoot right there that are standing there watching us. And I just bring the camera right across them and just totally nonchalant, like, yeah, I didn't see you there. There's a big X over there.
Man.
Yeah, yeah, they take way too many chances with us. They know we know they're there and we're not scared of them. So they'll just get way too close to us, which actually does scare me when I notice them on camera afterwards, especially.
Yeah, that would be a little unsettling.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the
Bet.
one at the beginning of the teaser trailer there, that's the camera's coming across, and there's the one in the wood line, and then it kind of zooms in and it shows you the Bigfoot there. When the camera comes back out again, it continues with that pan, and 15 feet in front of me, there's a bunch of trees that fell together like this, and there's a Bigfoot sitting right in there watching me. And Kelly Shaw showed this on Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. He scrubbed it back and forth a bunch of times. When I bring the camera across his face, his head goes like this and turns.
Huh.
That's not pareidolia, and he's about 15 feet away from me.
Yikes.
So this research area that you have in Montana, how did you
Which
find
one?
it? Let's say your most frequently visited. We'll put it to that one.
Well,
How did you find that area? What was your inspiration for that particular location?
well, the area that I've been frequenting the most over the last year is actually on the top of nearby Eureka Mountain, and has two ghost towns on top of it. Garnett, which is on the National Register and still upkept by the Park Service, and the much larger Coloma, 4 miles away, which is in complete ruins, shunned by everyone, and people fear to go in there after dark for some reason. And that's where we camp. But yeah, it just looked like a nice creepy place, and there's supposed to be ghosts there and stuff. And I'm always suspicious when the locals won't go to any place within half an hour of dark. There's something going on there, because they don't usually spook that, especially Montana. Montanans don't spook very much. So if they're creeped out by it and they won't go up there, something's going on there. So we went and camped there a few times and found out that, yeah, that place is haunted. And once we had a paranormal team up there, they proved it was also haunted by ghosts with all their paranormal gear. We were just convinced it was haunted by Bigfoot because we were finding their tracks and stuff. So we're like, well, I know it's making weird noises, scaring everybody away. There's Bigfoot tracks around here. It's pretty obvious what's doing it, you know. And then as soon as they figured out that we knew that they were there, then all of a sudden they were like, oh, okay, they're in on it. Leave them alone. Those other guys over there, chase them out. And that's actually happened twice while we were up there with our group. Camped on one side of the town, then somebody will come in and camp over on the other side of the town, and we'll be all fine, no problem or anything. And you hear them screaming and peeling out in the middle of the night, something terrified them. They run, you know, and it's like, we know it did that. Good job, you guys. That was really funny.
One question that always pops up when you talk about Montana is bears. And what is the bear activity in your research areas?
0. There's getting to be more and more grizzlies. They're getting to be more widespread in Montana. There's always been plenty of black bears. Mountain lions are actually more dangerous. They're more liable to jump on you from behind and try and kill you. And then the most dangerous animal isn't even a predator, it's a moose, because they're like big dumb bulldozers with a hangover that can't see anything. So if it moves, they'll try and mow it down. You guys in Alaska know what I'm talking about. That's the number one thing that can kill you in Montana, is generally a moose. And, you know, grizzlies, yeah, they take people out and stuff. But we've noticed that if you actually do find an area that's an active Bigfoot area, generally there's no bears in it. Especially if they've got their kids there, then there's really no bears in it. And if bears do come in, they either get chased out or turned into a menu item, and they generally know better. That one valley that I go to, we've never seen a bear track in it in almost 10 years. And the closest we saw was a ridge line right outside the valley that had a Bigfoot trail going up the top of the ridge line. We were following it, finding their tracks. And I had Caveman Yazzie with me. And there was a soft spot on the right side of the trail. And I said, hey, Caveman, what kind of track is that? And he looks at it and he goes, grizzly track, really big one. And it was. And I said, which way is it going? He goes, he's getting the hell away from that valley. Which is exactly right. That bear track was going exactly away from where that valley was. He came up on that trail, smelled the Bigfoot, and said, oh, screw that. He's out of there.
No stranger to bears are both of my co-hosts,
Yeah.
Paul Ayat and Matt Slater. Matt and I had a bear encounter actually together when we were hiking, and Paul met the Lord in Dillingham, Alaska, when he was fishing, and a giant grizzly bear appeared. That's what happened, Paul, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, blonde bear. Is like, oh man, too close, too close.
I've never had any grizzly run-ins, but I had a over 700-pound black bear try and kill me in Minnesota twice before he got nailed by a squad car and finally killed him. Almost killed the guy in the car too. So yeah, I have no particular love for bears, although they're pretty yummy, and we used to shoot them and eat them quite a bit when I was a kid. So, to me, that I kind of look at them the same way as Bigfoot: dangerous, nuisance, and menu item, kind of in that order.
Yeah. That's another state that I'm not too familiar with when it comes to Sasquatch and cryptid research, is Montana.
Yeah. Oh, if only there was only Bigfoot here, it would be so much safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start finding 31-inch tracks, like that's not a Bigfoot, and I don't want to meet what made that track. I was just talking to MK Davis earlier today, and MK was down at Lovelock Cave investigating the giants that got burnt up by the local natives that were tired of being eaten by them. And they were checking all that out. And of course, when he was down there, he had Don Monroe with and stuff. And those guys are the ones that actually went off the boardwalk in the cave and found the handprint, the greasy handprint on the ceiling, and held up a Bowie knife and took a picture to measure it. And then as soon as that out, the Park Service showed up and scrubbed it off again to get rid of it, so nobody could see that ever. So fortunately, those guys at least got documentation of it before the Park Service mysteriously decided to ruin the evidence. There were giants in there.
Yeah, we just actually watched a little YouTube short about Lovelock. I've read the book Life Among the Paiutes and her story, but yeah,
so,
actually,
that
Paul
the
and I
end
were
of
just
it where
talking
they
about
burned
that.
the end of it where they burned him in the cave, that was like the culmination of the story. They had been at war with him for several years and had killed off almost all of them on shore. They had made themselves like a little floating island that they were living out on the lake on. And then finally, some of the Braves noticed, hey, some of them came off this island and they went to this cave on the far side of the lake from where we're at. And that's when they surrounded him, the cave, and gave him the ultimatum. Be nice, giants, quit eating us, and we'll let you go. No, you're just too yummy. We got to keep eating you. Okay, I guess we're going to have to burn you alive then, stupid giants. So anyway, while MK is down there, him and his buddies decide that since they're in the area, they might as well trot around a little bit. And they heard really weird cries coming from the mountain up above where the cave was. So you know what this does to a Bigfoot researcher? It's like irresistible. So they had to go walk up there a ways, and he said they found these peculiar tracks that it looked like the size of like something an elephant would make a track like that. And it wasn't shaped right to be a Bigfoot. It was way too wide. It was a long track, but it was way too wide to be proportioned to a human or a Bigfoot. And I asked him, I said, by chance, because I know of one type of cryptid that leaves a really wide, otherwise kind of human-looking footprint. Did you count how many toes it had? And he goes, well, I'm not sure I did really. I said, let me ask you this. Was it slanted across the front? Or was the front rounded like a heel, but had toes on it? And he said, yeah, that's what it looked like. And I went, were all the toes the same size? And he said, yeah. And it didn't look like it had a big toe. No. And I said, well, it's a good thing you didn't go up there. That's a freaking troll track. They will eat you. Stay out of there.
Wow. Paul, what's your take on this Lovelock stuff? You and I just haven't watched a little clip about that story the other day.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating the oral history of all the native cultures across the lower 48 in Alaska. Where I know up here in Alaska, women were getting snatched I don't know if they're getting eaten or taken for a wife, but like that Lovelock thing, there's some brave guys to be, putting up with that, man, because that's those giants. I think any guys go up against giants like that are going to be, braver men than I.
I heard a
something
rumor that
else.
their favorite methodology for doing that is the get a bunch of guys with spears, hide them along the trail the giants go down, put a trip line. When the giant comes down, trip them. When they fall on their face, swarm them and jab them to death before they can get up again.
Oh, nice. Yeah, boy, that'll do it.
If you only got one giant, if you got multiple giants, that's not going to work.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Slater.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I didn't know anything about this cave scenario. I'll have to do some more reading and stuff about it because it sounds deeply fascinating.
Yeah, this area has changed greatly since the time that this happened. At the time it happened, there was basically an inland sea there, and now it's just a flat desert going down from the cave. At the time this is all happening, the water level was up at the cave, basically, and now it's all just gone. And they found all kinds of different interesting things in there. This cave had been opened up by guys that were digging for bat guano because it was, really made them a lot of money digging up bat guano, selling it for fertilizer. And when they got down like 7, 8 feet, they started finding artifacts and giant bones and huge shoes and all kinds of stuff. And the Park Service paid off with most of this stuff. They had it on display for quite a few years, and then it became too controversial to have any actual evidence that giants were in the cave. Now, they had a guy from the Smithsonian in there that surveyed part of it, but he was like, according to them, some Bush League guy that didn't take good notes. And so it's hard to tell what layer was what and what was what. And, the usual hooey you get from those BS meisters. And there's, pictures of the old museum that they had down near it where they've got the giant shoes on display and stuff like that. They're gone now. They got them out of there. And like I said, when MK and Don Monroe and those guys were there, they've got a boardwalk inside the cave you're supposed to stay on. Like mere humans do not wander around the cave. Stay on boardwalk. Yeah, we're Bigfoot researchers. We don't listen to that. So they went and wandered around the cave, and that's how they found that greasy handprint on the ceiling, which, by the way, I show in my show this Sunday, because I've got MK Davis and Blaine Tyler on there talking about the additional Bigfoot in the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Which I was just about to talk about. So on Sunday, May 19th on World Bigfoot Central, great show coming up. And can you tell us a little bit about what's coming up?
Yep, 8 Central Time for you guys if you're not used to seeing it, or if you think you're subscribed and you're going to get a notification. No, you aren't. Set your alarm clock. Because I know how many notifications YouTube sent out. I just checked it when the last video was out. 4.9% of my views are coming from subs. So YouTube is not going to tell you, even if you're subscribed and you have the little bell dinged, just plan on it's on Sunday at 8 Central. So what this is that both of these guys years ago found this stuff. And now that I know actually both of them, I said, hey, here's a great idea. Let's get both of you guys on the same show, and we'll talk about the additional Bigfoot that you found in the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now, MK Davis found one that as Patty's walking away, he's over on this side of her, and he's angling like this, like he's going to catch up with her. But Roger repositions in order to get Patty back, and she's behind a tree. So he goes over like this, then he comes back like this again. And while he's over like this, he gets several frames of this other Bigfoot moving toward her. And unless you were looking at this video frame by frame by frame, you would never notice it. That's how MK spotted it. And the only reason he spotted it is because there's another anomaly there at the same time as he's trying to reposition. There's a flash from the hillside. And he went back and looked at it, and it's not just like something's flaked off the film or something like that. It's in more than one frame, and it gets brighter. It's so bright it makes a lens flare. And then right below it, like a second later, is this other one that's turning and going away. And to me, it looks exactly like the flash that Bama Bigfoot got when she was trying to film the one in the bushes, and it zapped her camera and fried it. So that may have been a Bigfoot trying to zap them, that Roger actually got it on video. And then right below it, there's the second one that's trying to angle toward her. And then Blaine Tyler is talking about 3 that he spotted in there. The first one isn't even in the main body of the film. It's in the preamble film where they were just filming stock video to make their documentary. And there's one scene where it shows the horses riding along, and then it kind of cuts, and the video goes up this hillside. There's a steep cut, like there was a big landslide, or maybe they just denuded it from cutting down all the trees or something, and it's all kind of washed out looking. And there's like a mound at the bottom of it, and then there's the valley. Well, right in between that mound and where it goes steeply up, there's a huge Bigfoot standing right there watching them, which they never noticed. And then when you get into the main body of the film, about 45 seconds in, Blaine spotted this, and it's just kind of like what MK Davis got too, where there's one like 5 or 6 frames that you get of it. 2 or 3 of them are blurry, so you get to see it just enough to see it move, and it's a Bigfoot. This one doesn't actually move, but Blaine's so good at spotting them stationary because he does it with his own video all the time. He looks at this one and he sent me a frame of it. There's Patty walking away, and there's a huge one right here, about half the distance to Roger, glaring at him. And he took it and he enhanced it a little bit, zoomed in on it, and then he took the image and he flipped it black to white, and you can see this perfect conical Bigfoot head with the 2 huge eyes looking at Roger. And like, yeah, come on, Chase Patty,
Nice.
I'm right here. I'm going to mug you. Then Blaine also pointed out, as Patty gets way back by the edge of the hill and is getting ready to camera done, film done, there's another big female that's standing on that hillside, bigger than her, likely holding a baby that's waiting for her to come walking up there. So yeah, we got some additional Bigfoot in the Patterson Gimlin film. And the cool thing about this is that Roger and Bob said that the reason they were going up this canyon, they were going in that direction, is because they had found the tracks of 7 individuals that were going that way. Well, between Patty and the 4 others that Blaine and MK found, that's 5 of the 7.
Matt and Paul, have you ever heard and now when you talk about Patterson Gimlin film to the cryptid research crowd, oh my goodness, everybody just loses their mind, with all the observations and theories and be it conspiracy theories or facts, it's just a hot topic every time. So Matt, Paul, have you guys ever heard of additional Sasquatch being spotted in that film?
I have. I think I've seen it somewhere. I remember seeing it. I thought it was fascinating. That one that was walking in the center while it moved. I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've not seen anything about additionals in there. I'd love to see it.
Well, you get to see it on Sunday. Yeah. And
this is going to be a great show.
Blaine Tyler just has a little 3-minute clip that he put up on his channel, so that one doesn't really cover it far enough. MK Davis did that, plus the Flash, plus one other anomaly of Patty walking where she crossed her legs over somehow at some point. Like, he's studied this so many times, every anomaly has to talk about it. But I think that's like 20 minutes long, and that it's worth looking at because he goes into a little more depth on what we cover. I actually used part of that video in my video, but then I have him, talk about it's more like, how the hell did you notice this in the first place? And he said, because of the flash on the hillside. And he contacted Kodak too and said, what's the chance this is an anomaly? What could cause this kind of thing? Blah, blah. I mean, like, this guy does actual research.
Yeah. That'll be cool. That'll be really cool.
Yeah, this is going to be a great show. We love hearing different analysis and different aspects of Patterson Gimlin films and the Patterson Gimlin film and other research films that are out there as well. It's always fantastic to get a new perspective and a new angle and a new view. It's very educational. So
I think it's amazing that after 50 years, we're still pulling more data out of that thing. And one of the best things about this, we found lots and lots of things in there that are of interest to Bigfoot researchers. But this one is interesting, particularly against the skeptards that still think it was a guy in a suit.
Right.
Okay, skeptards. So they had 4 other guys in Bigfoot suits hiding in the background, thinking that 50 years from now, somebody might actually notice us, and that will lend to the credibility of our hoax. Are you freaking serious?
Yeah. So that's this Sunday, May 19th. And it's going to be a fantastic show. Duke Sullivan from World Bigfoot Central. Thank you so much for being with us tonight again and sharing with us all these great stories and giving us new perspective on some things and a different way to look at the state of Nebraska for certain. We hope that your great documentary that you presented there will one day be released so that everybody can get a good education.
It will be. Just be patient. I want to make sure I have the best version of it when I put it out.
Yeah.
That was the beta test over there with those guys.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, apologize for the technical difficulties. We're learning when we do this that sometimes things work in pre-recording testing, and then it gets down to it and it doesn't work in the actual recording of the show. So I'll take responsibility for that. My apologies. And hopefully next time we'll have a little better luck with the technical issues. Paul Ayotte, any last words from you?
Well, I certainly want to thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate talking to you, Duke. I think it's fascinating. I really like that the different areas of the country that you wouldn't think Bigfoot could be around. This is fascinating.
It boggles my mind too, Paul. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, I would have said, there's no Bigfoot there. There's no Bigfoot there. But now I know all these people that do research in all these states, and they're sending me pictures. I'm like, yeah, they're there.
It's awesome. Yeah. Thank
Matt
you.
Slater.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show again, Duke. And I learn something new every time that you're on the show, and it's such a great experience and it's fascinating. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I can't write books because I can't remember everything that I need to write.
Yeah.
So I just do lots of shows, and you guys can learn through osmosis because I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. But sometimes I listen to shows afterwards and I go, hey, I've listened to some of my older shows recently and went, where did that factoid come from? I completely forgot about that. And then I had to go look it up again and go, oh, I was right. When did I learn to forget that?
Duke Sullivan, World Bigfoot Central, World Bigfoot Radio, World Bigfoot TV, documentary, you name it, he does it. Thank you so much for joining us, Duke, and hope to have you back again. We should have you back to talk about just the Patterson-Gimlin film, just because your insight just on that alone is absolutely fantastic. So thank you so
Honest
much
to
again.
God, I've met Bob Gimlin several times. As a matter of fact, the first time I met him, I was standing in a parking lot, and he came walking up to me and put his arm out and said, "How you doing, partner?"
That's cool.
Because I had a Bigfoot T-shirt on from the conference he had been to a couple of weeks ago as a speaker, so he figured I had been there, but I hadn't. One of my friends got me one, so I'm wearing it, and he comes up to this conference, and I'm in the parking lot wearing this shirt. Hey, partner, how you doing? Well, that was the least likely way I thought I would ever meet Bob Gimlin. But honestly, if I was going to have him on my show, I wouldn't ask him so much about the filming of Patty as I would the events leading up to it and the events afterwards. And the only person I heard that's done an interview with him about what happened afterwards was Wes on Sasquatch Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
And this sounds like a part of an Indiana Jones movie with these guys trying to get this horse trailer out of there. It's downpouring rain. There's this brand new road cut in the side of a mountain that a bulldozer made. The rain is washing it out. They're trying to get down this road with their horse trailer before the road disappears. And they all get killed. And Roger is driving. Bob is on the passenger side. It's sheeting down rain. He can barely see where he's going. And he's like, "Bob, how am I doing over there on that side? Take a look." And Bob can't see anything. He opens a door and he looks and he goes, "There's no ground right here. Go faster." Like literally a ground is collapsing. Just like in a friggin' Indiana Jones movie.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what I said. I'd like to do the interview with him about what happened afterwards and then leading up to it, because everybody heard about the filming Patty part. And I know, I've got it memorized, but some of the stuff leading up to it, very interesting, because they spent a couple weeks riding around there before they finally got the video. They were about running out of film by the time they got that video. That was the end of the last reel they had. And then the weather went to hell. They barely, if it wasn't for Bob thinking and waking up when it started raining and going and putting boxes and stuff over a few of the tracks, they would have been washed away. Bob saved those. And then they barely made it the hell out of there before the road crumbled away and trapped him in there with angry Sasquatch. So that was there was a lot more to filming that movie than most people know about.
Yikes.
So yeah, and like Matt said, every time you're on, we learn something new. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for a good night. Thank you for a good show. And for myself, Daniel Becker in Anchorage, Alaska, for my co-host Matt Slater in Quincy, Washington, and the one and only Paul Ayot in Anchorage, Alaska, and World Bigfoot Central, World Bigfoot TV, World Bigfoot Radio, the flagship of all the cryptid shows, host Duke Sullivan. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.